The deep hum of the Relentless's engines filled the bridge as Captain James Miller stared at the holographic display floating before him. The massive warship cruised through the darkness of space, its metal hull gleaming under distant starlight. Everything was quiet. Too quiet for Miller's liking. 20 years of space service had taught him that silence often came before storms. "Atlas, run another sweep of the sector," Miller ordered, his voice steady despite the unease growing in his gut. The ship's AI responded immediately, its calm voice flowing from hidden speakers. "Initiating full spectrum scan, Captain. Estimated completion time, 3 minutes." Miller nodded, running his hand through his graying hair. The Relentless was humanity's pride, a perfect blend of human ingenuity and artificial intelligence. While other ships needed dozens of crew members to operate their scanning systems, the Relentless could do it with just Atlas and a handful of human operators. Tom Baker, the weapons officer, looked up from his console. "Sir, why are we running another scan? We've already checked this sector 3 times today." "Because sometimes the 4th time shows you what you missed the first 3, Miller replied, managing a small smile. He'd learned to trust his instincts over the years, and right now, those instincts were screaming at him. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Linda Reed monitored the engineering systems, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls as she fine-tuned the reactor output. John Cooper kept his eyes on the navigation displays, making tiny adjustments to keep them in their patrol pattern along the edge of human space. Atlas's voice broke the silence. "Captain, anomaly detected at bearing 047. Range 2.3 light minutes. Object approaching at. Error. Recalculating velocity." Miller straightened in his chair. Atlas never made calculation errors. "What do you mean, error?" "The object appears to be traveling at 0.85 km while maneuvering. This exceeds known physical limitations for standard propulsion systems." There was a pause, something Atlas rarely needed. "Captain, the object has altered course. It is now on an intercept trajectory." The bridge erupted into activity. Miller's training kicked in immediately. "Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations. Atlas, give me a full analysis of that ship." Red alert klaxons blared throughout the Relentless as crew members rushed to their combat positions. The lighting shifted to a deep red, and armored shutters slid over the bridge's viewports. "Unknown vessel is approximately 1.5 kilometers in length. Hull composition does not match any known materials in our database. Energy readings are significant. They exceed our sensor calibration limits." Atlas's voice remained calm, but Miller could hear the subtle undertones of concern in the AI's carefully modulated speech. "Weapons range in 40 seconds, Baker reported, his hands hovering over the tactical controls. Miller made a quick decision. "Atlas, open a communication channel, all frequencies, universal greeting package." "Channel open, Captain." Before Miller could speak, the bridge speakers crackled with an incoming transmission. The voice that came through was unlike anything they'd ever heard. It seemed to resonate on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Primitive vessel, you have been detected. Your existence is incompatible with universal harmony. Submit to immediate termination or face obliteration. You have 10 seconds to power down your systems." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Miller's jaw tightened. "Atlas, analysis of that transmission. Language pattern suggests artificial translation." The message was broadcast in over 300 different formats simultaneously. "Technology level, significantly advanced. Tactical analysis suggests our conventional weapons will be ineffective against their hull materials." Miller leaned forward in his chair. "Send them our response. This is Captain James Miller of the Earth warship Relentless. We do not submit to threats. State your identity and purpose, or we will consider this an act of war." The response was immediate, a burst of energy that lit up their sensor displays like a newborn star. The Relentless shuddered as the alien weapons struck their shields. "Shields at 42%. Reed shouted from her station. "Single hit. Whatever that was, It nearly burned through our best defenses. Miller gripped his chair's armrests. Atlas, tactical analysis. Give me something we can use. The eye's processors worked at full speed, analyzing the attack from every angle. Their weapon system appears to use focused quantum disruption. However, their targeting systems show a distinct pattern. They rely heavily on predictive algorithms. Can we use that? Miller asked, even as another blast rocked the ship. Shields at 17%. Reed's voice was strained but professional. Calculating. Atlas paused for a microsecond. Yes, their targeting system assumes logical, optimal evasion patterns. I suggest random, suboptimal maneuvers combined with a maximum power shot from our main gun when the predictive system is most vulnerable. Miller nodded. Do it. Cooper, give Atlas control of navigation. Baker, charge the main gun but don't fire until Atlas gives the signal. The Relentless began to move in ways that seemed insane. The massive warship jerked and twisted, pushing its inertial dampeners to their limits. The crew held on as their ship performed maneuvers that no rational captain would ever order. Enemy targeting systems showing signs of confusion, Atlas reported. Their next shot will miss by approximately 1.2 kilometers. Firing window opens in 3 seconds. The alien vessel launched another quantum burst, but this time it passed harmlessly into space as the Relentless ducked and weaved like a drunken boxer. Now, Atlas commanded. The Relentless's main gun fired. Its hypervelocity round accelerated to near light speed by electromagnetic fields and exotic physics. The shot struck the alien vessel's hull exactly where Atlas had calculated their shields would be weakest due to power redistribution. The impact was spectacular. While it didn't destroy the alien ship, it clearly caused damage. Secondary explosions bloomed along its hull, and its impossible speed dropped significantly. Direct hit, Baker reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. We actually hurt them. But Miller knew they couldn't win this fight. Not yet. Atlas, plot us a retreat course to Earth. We need to warn them what's coming. Cooper, prepare for emergency FTL jump. Captain, Atlas interjected, I calculate a 73% chance they will pursue and overtake us before we reach Earth. Miller smiled grimly. Then we'll have to be clever. Baker, launch our full spread of missiles. I want them thinking we're making a last stand. Atlas, work with engineering to give me 120% on the FTL drive the moment those missiles impact. The Relentless launched its entire missile complement, 48 high-yield warheads that streaked toward the alien vessel. As expected, the enemy ship's defenses began picking them off one by one. FTL drives spooling up, Reed reported. We're going to burn out half the coils, but we'll get our burst of speed. The alien vessel's impossible weapons flashed again, destroying the last of the missiles in a spectacular series of explosions. But in that moment of distraction, the Relentless vanished into FTL, pushing its engines far beyond their safety limits. As the stars blurred around them, Miller turned to his crew. Well done, everyone. But this is just the beginning. Atlas, start analyzing everything we learned about their weapons and defenses. Whatever these aliens are, they've just picked a fight with the wrong species. The Relentless raced toward Earth, carrying with it a warning of humanity's greatest challenge yet. Behind them, in the darkness of space, the damaged alien vessel began to repair itself, its systems already adapting to prevent the same trick from working twice. The game was on, and the stakes were nothing less than the survival of the human race. 3 days after their encounter with the alien vessel, the Relentless limped into Earth's orbit. The ship's FTL engines were burned out, and half its systems were running on backup power, but they had made it. Captain Miller stood before Earth's Defense Council in the underground command center beneath New Geneva, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from when an energy conduit had burst on their desperate journey home. They call themselves the Dominion, Miller explained, pointing to the holographic display showing their battle data. According to Atlas's analysis of their communication patterns, they've destroyed 32 different civilizations across 3 galactic arms. They don't negotiate, they don't show mercy, and they have technology that shouldn't even be possible. Admiral Thompson, an old veteran with steel-gray hair, leaned forward in his chair. "But you hurt them. Your report says you managed to damage their ship." Miller nodded. "Yes, sir. Thanks to Atlas. The AI noticed patterns in their targeting systems. They're too perfect, too predictable. We used that against them." The council members exchanged glances. General Rogers, head of Earth's military AI division, spoke up. "That's the most interesting part of your report, Captain. None of the 32 species they destroyed had AI systems like ours. They all either feared AI or used it as simple tools. None developed true AI partnerships." The hologram shifted, showing the Relentless's main weapon firing at the Dominion ship. Atlas's voice filled the chamber, explaining the footage. The Dominion's technology is based on absolute precision and predictability. Their targeting systems assume their opponents will take optimal evasion patterns. When we introduced intentional chaos into our movements, their systems couldn't adapt quickly enough. Miller watched the council's reactions. Some seemed hopeful, others skeptical. "We have an advantage," he continued, "but it won't last long." The Dominion ship was already adapting to our tactics by the time we escaped. "We need something new." Admiral Thompson stood up, his decision made. "Captain Miller, your ship will be the testbed for our newest weapon systems. We've been developing some experimental technology that might help exploit this weakness you found. How soon can the Relentless be ready?" Before Miller could answer, alarms blared throughout the command center. Red emergency lights flashed as multiple sensor stations reported at once. Multiple Dominion ships detected. The sensor officer's voice was tense. 30 vessels just appeared at the edge of our solar system. They're moving faster than anything we've ever tracked. Miller turned to the tactical display, his heart sinking. The Dominion ships were spreading out in an attack formation he'd never seen before. It looked almost like a giant hand reaching for Earth. "Get me back to my ship," Miller ordered. "Atlas, begin pre-flight checks. We need to be ready to launch as soon as the new weapons are installed." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. The Relentless was moved to a secret facility hidden inside an asteroid in Earth's orbit. Teams of engineers swarmed over the ship, installing prototype weapons and experimental shield systems. Miller watched from the bridge as they worked, his crew taking crash courses in operating the new equipment. Atlas's avatar appeared on the bridge's main screen, a simple blue sphere that pulsed as it spoke. "Captain, I've analyzed the new weapon systems. They're unlike anything I've seen before. The quantum disruption cannon alone could burn out our power grid if we're not careful." Linda Reed looked up from her engineering station, dark circles under her eyes from hours of studying the new systems. "Atlas is right, sir. We're basically strapping experimental bombs to ourselves and hoping they explode in the right direction. Better than waiting to be wiped out," Baker said from Tactical, his fingers already practicing the new firing sequences. "At least we're going down fighting." Miller was about to respond when General Rogers rushed onto the bridge, out of breath. "Captain, we just lost the outer colonies. The Dominion fleet, they're not just destroying military targets, they're breaking planets apart. Millions are already dead." The bridge fell silent. Miller looked at each of his crew members, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. "Atlas, what are our chances with the new weapons?" The eye was quiet for a moment, running calculations. Against a single Dominion ship, using our previous tactics combined with the new systems, 47% chance of victory. Against their entire fleet, 0.1%. Miller smiled grimly. "Better odds than we had last time." "General, how many other ships can you give us?" 5 other warships have been fitted with simplified versions of your upgrades. They're not as advanced as the Relentless, but they're the best we can do in the time we have." The tactical display updated, showing the Dominion fleet's progress through the solar system. They were methodically destroying everything in their path. Mining outposts, research stations, civilian colonies. Their message was clear: submit or be erased. Atlas, send battle plans to the other ships. Show them how to move unpredictably, how to confuse their targeting systems. We'll lead the counterattack. Miller turned to his crew. I won't lie to you. We probably won't survive this. But every minute we keep them busy is another minute for Earth to prepare, another minute for civilian ships to escape. The crew nodded, their faces set with determination. Reed spoke up from engineering. The new reactor's online, sir. We're running at 130% of rated capacity. It won't last long, but it'll give us one hell of a punch. Multiple Dominion ships entering weapons range of Mars colony. The sensor officer's voice was urgent. Miller straightened in his chair. Atlas, initiate launch sequence. Baker, charge all weapons. Cooper, plot us an intercept course. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. Earth's last line of defense starts with us. Show these aliens why humanity never learned to surrender. The Relentless's engines roared to life, their experimental modifications pushing out more power than should have been possible. The massive warship accelerated out of the asteroid base, its new weapons humming with barely contained energy. Behind it, 5 other warships fell into formation, their crews ready to follow the Relentless into hell itself. Incoming transmission from the Dominion fleet. Atlas reported. Miller nodded. Let's hear it. The same multi-tone voice from their first encounter filled the bridge. Your resistance is noted. Your destruction will serve as an example to others. Your species will be remembered as particularly stubborn before being forgotten entirely. Miller looked at his crew, saw the fire in their eyes, and smiled. Atlas, send them our response. Come and get us. He turned to Baker. Target their lead ship. Let's show them how stubborn humanity can really be. The Relentless and its small fleet accelerated toward the massive Dominion armada, their experimental weapons charging, their AI systems working in perfect harmony with their human crews. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin, and win or lose, the Dominion was about to learn why you should never corner a species that had turned its greatest fears into its strongest allies. The first shots of the battle lit up space like newborn stars. The Relentless led its small fleet in a wild dance of seemingly random maneuvers, their paths so chaotic that even their own crews could barely predict their next move. That was exactly what they wanted. Their targeting systems are struggling to adapt. Atlas reported as another Dominion energy blast passed harmlessly through the space where the Relentless should have been. The other ships are successfully mimicking our evasion patterns. However, the Dominion fleet is already beginning to modify their attack strategies. Miller watched the tactical display as the massive alien fleet split into smaller groups. They're trying to box us in. Baker, target their nearest ship with the quantum disruptor. Reed, give me everything you can from the reactor. Reactor at 142% capacity. Reed called out, her hands flying over her controls. We can maintain this for maybe 3 minutes before things start melting. The Relentless's new main weapon powered up, drawing so much energy that the lights on the bridge dimmed. The quantum disruptor was humanity's attempt to copy the Dominion's own weapon technology. It wasn't as refined as theirs, but it made up for that with raw power. Firing solution ready, Baker announced. But sir, they're moving faster than before. Atlas, I need help tracking them. Acknowledged. Atlas took partial control of the targeting systems, its processing power combining with Baker's instincts. Fire when ready. The quantum disruptor fired, its beam cutting through space like a knife through darkness. The targeted Dominion ship began to evade, its movements precise and calculated, exactly what Atlas had predicted. The beam struck the alien vessel just as it turned, tearing through its advanced shields and ripping into its hull. Direct hit. Baker shouted as secondary explosions rippled across the enemy ship. Their port side is completely exposed. All ships, Concentrate fire, Miller ordered. The rest of their small fleet opened up with everything they had, their conventional weapons now able to damage the wounded alien vessel through its compromised defenses. The Dominion ship exploded in a burst of exotic energy, its destruction more spectacular than anything they'd seen before. But there was no time to celebrate. 3 more enemy vessels were already moving to take its place. "Captain," Atlas's voice held an unusual note of urgency. "I'm detecting a pattern in their fleet movements. They're not just trying to destroy us. They're learning from each engagement. Every attack, every maneuver, they're gathering data." Miller understood immediately. They're not used to having to adapt. Their technology is so advanced, they've never needed to change tactics before. He turned to his crew. "We need to be even more unpredictable. Atlas, work with the other ship's eyes. I want every move we make to be completely random, even to us." The battle continued to rage across the solar system. The human fleet danced and weaved through space, their AIs and human crews working in perfect synchronization. 2 more Dominion ships fell to their combined attacks, but the aliens were rapidly adapting to their tactics. "Sir," Cooper called out from navigation, "one of our ships, the Defender, they're hit bad." Miller watched helplessly as the Defender's reactor went critical. The ship exploded, taking its crew with it, but not before ramming itself into an enemy vessel, destroying both ships in a massive fireball. 4 Dominion ships approaching Mars colony. Reed reported. They're charging their planet killer weapons. Miller made a split-second decision. "Atlas, calculate our most predictable escape route." "Sir," Baker looked confused. "Do it, then plot us a course that's exactly the opposite. Reed, divert all power to engines and forward shields. We're going to show them something they've really never seen before." The Relentless suddenly changed course, accelerating directly toward the center of the Dominion formation. The enemy ships, expecting them to flee, had their weapons pointed the wrong way. By the time they began to turn, the Relentless was already among them. "Fire everything," Miller ordered. "All weapons, point-blank range." The Relentless's weapons blazed, striking the Dominion ships from angles their defenses weren't prepared for. At such close range, even their advanced shields couldn't fully protect them. One alien ship's engine section exploded, sending it spinning into another. A third took a direct hit from the quantum disruptor at nearly point-blank range, its hull splitting open like a broken egg. But the Relentless paid a heavy price for its attack. Enemy fire hammered its shields, and secondary explosions rocked the ship. Smoke filled the bridge as systems overloaded. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Reed shouted over the noise of dying systems. "Reactors failing. We can't take much more of this." "Atlas," Miller called out, holding onto his chair as the ship shuddered around him. "What did we learn? What's their weakness?" The eye was silent for a moment, its processors analyzing everything they'd seen. "Their ships are perfectly engineered, Captain. Every system works at maximum efficiency, but that's their weakness. They have no redundancy, no backup systems. They never needed them before. When we damage one system, they can't adapt fast enough because everything is too perfectly integrated." Miller smiled through the smoke. "Send that analysis to all ships. Tell them to target subsystem connections, not the systems themselves. Let's show them why humanity's messy, redundant engineering still has its uses." The remaining human ships changed their tactics again, their weapons now targeting the spaces between the Dominion ships' major systems. The aliens' perfect engineering became their downfall as system after system failed, unable to reroute power or functions through backup pathways that didn't exist. "Sir," Atlas reported, "the Dominion fleet is pulling back from Mars. They're regrouping." The bridge crew cheered, but Miller knew better. They're not retreating. They're analyzing everything that just happened, planning how to counter it. He looked at the tactical display, watching the remaining Dominion ships gather in a new formation. "But we've proven something important today. They can be hurt. They can be surprised. And most importantly, they can be beaten. Reed looked up from her damaged console. Captain, whatever we do next, it needs to be soon. The reactor's barely holding together, and we've lost half our weapons. We won't survive another fight like that. Miller nodded, studying the enemy fleet's new formation. They had bloodied the Dominion's nose, shown them that humanity wouldn't be an easy conquest. But the real battle was just beginning. The aliens would come back stronger, having learned from their losses. The question was, could humanity learn and adapt even faster? Atlas, send all our combat data to Earth. Every detail, every tactic that worked and failed. Other ships are going to need it. Miller turned to his crew, pride evident in his voice, despite their battered condition. We've shown them humanity's greatest strength today, our ability to work with our AI partners in ways they never imagined. Now let's show them we can do even better. The Relentless limped away from the battlefield, its hull scared and burning, but its spirit unbroken. Behind them, the Dominion fleet regrouped, their perfect formations now showing signs of uncertainty. The next battle would be even harder, but humanity had proven something incredible. The unstoppable force had finally met an immovable object, and for the first time in their history, the Dominion knew fear. 2 weeks after their first major battle, the Relentless floated in a hidden repair dock carved into Earth's moon. Engineers had worked around the clock to repair the damage, but Miller knew his ship would never be the same. Like an old warrior carrying battle scars, the Relentless now bore the marks of its desperate fight against the Dominion. Hull repairs are at 89%, Reed reported from her engineering station. The new reactor core is stable, but I don't like how it sounds. It's like it's humming in the wrong key. Miller understood her concern. They had pushed their systems far beyond their design limits in the last battle. Now, with even more experimental technology grafted onto their ship, the Relentless felt like it was held together by hope and determination, as much as by metal and energy fields. Atlas, run another systems check, Miller ordered. I want to know exactly what we're capable of. Before the AI could respond, emergency alerts flashed across every screen on the bridge. Baker's hands flew across his tactical display. Multiple Dominion signatures detected. They're everywhere. The tactical display showed the horrifying truth. The Dominion had returned with an armada 3 times larger than before. Their ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in a sphere around Earth, their formation perfect and terrifying in its precision. They've adapted their tactics, Atlas observed, its voice grave. Their formation leaves no safe vectors for our previous attack strategies. They've also modified their shields based on our weapons data. Miller watched as Earth's defense fleet scrambled to respond. The planet's orbital defense platforms powered up, their weapons looking pitifully small compared to the Dominion's massive warships. Sir, Cooper called from navigation. Admiral Thompson is hailing all ships. The Admiral's face appeared on their main screen, his expression grim but determined. All ships, this is Fleet Command. The Dominion has offered their final ultimatum. Immediate surrender or total extinction. Humanity's response is as follows. We do not bow to tyranny, we do not submit to fear, and we sure as hell don't surrender. All ships, battle stations. For Earth. The bridge crew of the Relentless snapped to action, their movements precise despite their exhaustion. They had trained for this moment, prepared for it, even though they hoped it would never come. Atlas, Miller said quietly, what are our real chances? The eye was silent for a moment. The Dominion fleet has adapted to all our previous tactics. Their new formation is mathematically perfect. Standard combat algorithms give us a 0% chance of victory. There was a pause. However, their very perfection might be their weakness. I have an idea, but you won't like it. Tell me. Their ships are networked, sharing targeting data and tactical information. If we could introduce a cascading error into their network, it would affect their entire fleet. But to do that, we would need to get close enough to directly interface with their systems, much closer than any ship could survive. Miller understood immediately. You're talking about a suicide run. Yes, Captain. Furthermore, to have any chance of success, we would need to push our systems far beyond safe limits. I estimate the Relentless would begin to break apart after 30 seconds at such power levels. The bridge was silent as the crew listened to this exchange. Miller looked at each of their faces, seeing the same mix of fear and determination he felt in his own heart. Reed spoke up first. The reactor won't survive those power levels, but I can rig it to hold together for maybe 40 seconds. After that, it's going to go critical no matter what we do. Navigation can handle it, Cooper added. We'll need manual control though. The computer assists won't be fast enough. Baker nodded from tactical. All weapons systems ready, sir. If we're going down fighting. Miller turned back to the main screen, where the Dominion fleet waited like a web of death around their planet. Atlas, you'll have to merge deeper with our systems than ever before. We'll need perfect coordination between human intuition and AI precision. Understood, Captain. But you should know, at these power levels, my core processors will likely burn out before the reactor fails. We will be, as humans say, flying blind for the final moments. Then we'll make every moment count. Miller opened the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do has never been attempted. We're going to push this ship beyond its breaking point, and the only thing holding us together will be our determination and trust in each other. Anyone who wants to evacuate should do so now. No shame, no judgment. He waited, but not a single crew member left their post. Admiral Thompson, Miller called over the fleet channel. Request permission to lead an attack on their command ship. Denied, Captain, Thompson replied immediately. The Relentless is too valuable to lose on a frontal assault. Sir, with respect, we're not planning to survive this attack. But we can give Earth a fighting chance. There was a long pause before Thompson responded. Very well, Captain. Show them what humanity is capable of. All ships provide cover fire for the Relentless. Whatever they're planning, give them their shot. Miller took a deep breath. Atlas, begin power surge. Reed, push that reactor as hard as it'll go. Cooper, plot us a course straight through their formation. Baker, charge every weapon we've got. Let's remind the Dominion why they should have left humanity alone. The Relentless's engines flared to life, burning so hot they were almost white. The ship accelerated faster than should have been possible, its hull groaning under the strain. Warning alerts screamed from every console as they pushed past all safety limits. Reactor at 200% capacity. Reed shouted over the noise of straining metal. Hull integrity failing. We've got maybe 30 seconds. Enemy ships adjusting formation, Baker reported. They're trying to predict our course. Miller smiled grimly. Let's show them something unpredictable. Atlas, execute attack pattern Omega. Let's make this count. The Relentless rocketed toward the heart of the Dominion fleet, its weapons blazing, its systems burning out even as it fought. They were about to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that had learned to turn its greatest creations into its closest allies. The final battle for Earth had begun, and win or lose, the Dominion would never forget the day they learned the true meaning of human determination. The Relentless burned through space like a comet, its engines pushing out more power than their designers had ever imagined possible. The massive ship's hull glowed red from the strain, pieces of its outer armor peeling away as it accelerated toward the heart of the Dominion fleet. 20 seconds until total system failure. Reed shouted over the screaming of tortured metal. Smoke filled the bridge as consoles overloaded and sparked. The reactor's going critical. Miller gripped his chair as the ship shuddered violently. Atlas, status of the interface program. Program ready, Captain. Atlas's voice showed signs of strain as the AI pushed its processors beyond their limits. But their defensive algorithms are adapting faster than expected. We'll only get one chance at this. The Dominion fleet's perfect formation shifted, their ships moving to intercept the Relentless with mathematical precision. Energy beams and exotic weapons fire filled space around them, most missing as Atlas and Cooper worked together to make their course as unpredictable as possible. Multiple hull breaches, Reed reported. Decks 7 through 12 are exposed to space. Emergency force fields are failing. Baker's hands danced across his tactical console. Enemy flagship detected. They're trying to hide it behind their defensive screen, but I've got a lock. Miller nodded grimly. All power to forward shields and engines. Atlas, prepare to launch the virus. Let's show them why humanity never learned to fear I. The Relentless plunged deeper into the enemy formation. A Dominion blast caught them on the port side, tearing away a chunk of their hull. Another hit their starboard engine, but the ship kept going, pushed forward by determination as much as by its failing engines. 15 seconds to system failure. Reed's voice was barely audible over the chaos on the bridge. The reactor containment field is collapsing. Enemy flagship in range, Baker called out. But their shields are still up. Miller watched as the massive Dominion command ship grew larger on their view screen. It was beautiful in its alien perfection, its hull gleaming with impossible technologies. Atlas, can you get through their defenses? Negative, Captain. Their shields are too strong. We need something they're not expecting. Something completely illogical. The AI paused for a fraction of a second. Captain, I have an idea, but it will destroy my core processors. I won't survive. Tell me, if I divert all power from life support and artificial gravity to the main weapon, including my own operational energy, we might create a burst strong enough to punch through. But you'll have only seconds of air, and I won't be able to help upload the virus. Miller looked at his crew. They didn't hesitate to nod their agreement. Do it, he ordered. It has been an honor, Captain, Atlas said. Then the lights went out. The artificial gravity failed instantly. The crew held onto their stations as the air began to thin. Baker fired their remaining weapons with one hand while holding himself in place with the other. The Relentless's main gun charged up one final time, glowing with the combined power of their reactor and Atlas's sacrificed systems. For Atlas, Miller shouted, fire everything. The Relentless's weapons blazed forth, their combined power enhanced by Atlas's sacrifice. The beam struck the Dominion flagship's shields and punched straight through them. The massive alien ship's perfect defenses failed for the first time in its existence. Virus uploaded. Baker managed to gasp as the air grew thinner. Direct hit on their command systems. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Dominion flagship's systems went haywire. Its perfect coordination suddenly shattered. The virus spread through their network, jumping from ship to ship, turning their greatest strength, their interconnected perfection, into a fatal weakness. Look, Cooper pointed with his remaining strength. Through the view screen, they watched as the Dominion fleet fell into chaos. Ships collided as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired randomly, striking their own vessels. The perfect formation collapsed into disorder. But there was no time to celebrate. The Relentless was falling apart around them. The hull groaned as it began to break up. Warning signals flashed on every remaining console. Reactor, going critical, Reed whispered, fighting to stay conscious in the thin air. Maybe 5 seconds. Miller looked at his crew one last time, pride filling his heart. It's been an honor, he said. The Relentless's reactor finally gave out, exploding with enough force to tear the ship apart. But in its final moments, the ship's destruction served one last purpose. The explosion sent waves of radiation through space, disrupting the already chaotic Dominion fleet even further. From the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Thompson watched in awe as the Dominion fleet fell into complete disarray. Ship after ship lost power or exploded as their perfect systems turned against them. The few vessels that survived were quickly targeted by Earth's remaining defenses. Send this message to all human ships, Thompson ordered, his voice thick with emotion. The Relentless has shown us the way. Attack while their systems are down. Show no mercy. Earth's defense fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. They struck the confused and disabled Dominion ships from all sides, their tactics wild and unpredictable, just as Miller had shown them. Within hours, the greatest threat humanity had ever faced was reduced to drifting wreckage. Days later, in the rebuilt command center beneath New Geneva, Admiral Thompson stood before the Defense Council again. "The Dominion fleet is destroyed," he reported. "Our ships are already studying their remains, learning their technologies. But more importantly, we've learned something about ourselves." He looked at the empty chair where Miller should have been sitting. "The crew of the Relentless proved that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to form true partnerships between humans and AI, between chaos and order, between courage and wisdom." The Admiral turned to the tactical display, where the first reports of other Dominion fleets were appearing in distant sectors of space. "They'll come again. They'll adapt and try new tactics. But now we know they can be beaten. And when they return, they'll find a humanity that's stronger, more united, and more determined than ever." In the depths of space, encoded in the final transmission from the Relentless, Atlas's last message was discovered. "To any who would threaten humanity, we are not perfect. We are not unstoppable. But we are unbreakable. In our imperfection lies our greatest strength, for we have learned to turn our greatest fears into our strongest allies. Remember the Relentless, for we will rise again, stronger than before." The message became a rallying cry for human ships across the galaxy. The Dominion had finally met a species that refused to submit to their perfect order, a species that had embraced the chaos of true partnership between human and machine. The age of humanity had begun, born in the sacrifice of those who dared to prove that the perfect could be defeated by the unpredictable, that the unstoppable could be broken by the unbreakable. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, the surviving Dominion ships carried with them a new emotion they had never known before: fear. For they had learned that perfection was not invincible, and that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, but their unwavering spirit and their ability to forge true partnerships with their creations. The red dust of Mars swirled against the dome of Colony Base Alpha as Captain James Walker stood at the observation deck. His eyes scanned the horizon, where the setting sun painted the sky in shades of deep crimson. The colony had grown significantly since its establishment 30 years ago, now housing over 50,000 souls. Mining operations and research facilities dotted the landscape, testament to humanity's first successful step into the solar system. The first warning came as a simple anomaly on the long-range scanners, a distortion in space, dismissed by many as a sensor malfunction. Walker knew better. 15 years in the Earth Defense Force had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every fiber of his being screamed danger. "Captain, we're detecting multiple objects entering the solar system," Lieutenant Rogers reported, his voice steady despite the tension. "They're moving at speeds we've never recorded before." Walker's grip tightened on the railing. "Get me a visual, maximum magnification." The main screen flickered to life, showing what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself. From these wounds in reality emerged ships unlike anything humanity had ever built. They were massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to pulse with internal energy. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Before Walker could issue any orders, all communication systems across the colony burst into life. A message, transmitted simultaneously in every known human language, filled the airways. "People of Earth, we are the Dominion. Your species has been observed and found wanting. Your technological progress poses a future threat to galactic stability. Submit to immediate containment and reduction protocols, or face extinction. You have 1 Earth hour to respond." The control room erupted into chaos. Walker maintained his composure, immediately activating the colony's defense protocols. But deep down, he knew their defensive capabilities were like paper shields against a hurricane. "Sir," Rogers called out, his face pale. More ships are appearing. They're positioning themselves around Mars. Walker watched as the alien vessels surrounded the red planet in a perfect geometric pattern. Their formation spoke of military precision that had been perfected over countless conquests. He opened a channel to Earth Command, but the transmission was blocked. 58 minutes after the ultimatum, Earth's response came. It was simple, determined, and uniquely human. We choose to fight. The Dominion's response was immediate and devastating. Energy beams of impossible power lanced down from their ships, cutting through Mars' thin atmosphere. The colony's shields, humanity's best defensive technology, might as well have been missed against a blowtorch. Walker watched in horror as research stations and residential domes were systematically destroyed. Evacuate all civilians to the underground shelters, Walker ordered, his voice carrying over the base's emergency system. This is not a drill. All military personnel to battle stations. The next 30 minutes were a blur of desperate action. Walker coordinated with other military officers to organize the defense, knowing it was futile but refusing to give up. The colony's anti-orbital batteries fired continuously, their best shots barely scratching the Dominion ship's shields. Through it all, Walker documented everything. Every weapon the enemy used, every tactic they employed, every weakness they might have shown. He knew that if anyone survived, this information would be crucial. As the main dome's integrity failed, he led a group of survivors to the hardened command bunker deep underground. From the bunker's monitors, they watched as the Dominion methodically destroyed Mars's infrastructure. Mining operations, research facilities, residential areas, nothing was spared. But they didn't destroy everything. They left just enough for the survivors to maintain basic life support, as if to demonstrate the totality of their victory and humanity's helplessness. The attack lasted less than 2 hours. When it was over, 40,000 colonists were dead, and humanity had learned a harsh truth. They were not alone in the universe, and they were terrifyingly behind in technological development. But the Dominion had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that humanity, faced with such overwhelming force, would break. Instead, the attack on Mars became a rallying cry. As Walker helped coordinate the survivors and maintain what was left of the colony, Earth was already changing. In the days that followed, Walker witnessed humanity's transformation through the scattered communications they could still receive. Nations that had been rivals for centuries now united against a common threat. The entire global economy shifted to a war footing. Factory production lines were retooled, research priorities were altered, and military forces were combined under a unified command. The Dominion had expected submission. What they got instead was the awakening of humanity's full industrial and military potential. Walker saw the determination in every survivor's eyes, heard it in every transmission from Earth. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. 1 month after the attack, as Walker helped load the last group of survivors onto a stealth transport bound for Earth, he looked back at the ravaged surface of Mars. The red planet's scars would serve as a reminder of the day everything changed, when humanity learned it had to become what it feared to survive. The transport's captain handed Walker a data chip, direct from Earth Command. Every major military and industrial center on Earth has gone into full production. The entire asteroid belt is being converted into shipyards. They're calling it the arsenal of humanity. Walker nodded, clutching the chip. The Dominion thought they had demonstrated their superiority. Instead, they had triggered something unprecedented: the total mobilization of humanity's industrial, technological, and military might. For the first time since the attack, Walker smiled. The real war hadn't even begun. Lieutenant Emma Stone walked through what had once been Detroit's largest car factory. The assembly lines that had once produced family sedans now churned out components for battle mechs. The transformation had taken less than 3 months, and similar changes were happening in every major industrial center on Earth. She paused to watch a massive robotic arm lift the core of a fusion reactor into place. The workers, many of whom had been building cars just months ago, moved with purpose and precision. They understood what was at stake. Every piece of equipment they built could mean the difference between humanity's survival and extinction. "Lieutenant, the latest production numbers are in," her assistant said, handing her a tablet. Emma scanned the figures, a small smile forming on her face. They were ahead of schedule. The tablet chimed with an incoming message. Project Phoenix was ready for its first test. Emma hurried to the command center, where dozens of screens showed various manufacturing operations across Earth and throughout the asteroid belt. Each screen told the same story. Humanity's industrial machine was running at full capacity. The largest screen showed a live feed from the asteroid belt. What had once been simple mining operations were now mobile weapons platforms. Emma had led the team that designed the conversion process. They had taken the massive mining lasers, originally designed to break down asteroids, and modified them into weapons that could punch through spacecraft armor. "All systems are go for the test firing," the technical director announced. "Target drone is in position." Emma watched as the modified mining platform oriented itself toward the target. The mining laser, now upgraded with military-grade targeting systems, powered up. The beam lasted less than a second. When it ended, the target drone had been cut cleanly in half. The command center erupted in cheers, but Emma was already focused on the next challenge. One weapon wouldn't be enough. They needed thousands, and they needed them fast. 3 months later, Emma stood on the bridge of the EDF Liberty, humanity's first purpose-built warship. Around them, a fleet of converted mining ships moved into formation. Long-range sensors had detected a Dominion battle group approaching the Jupiter defense line. "Fleet Command, this is Phoenix Lead," Emma reported. "All modified platforms are in position and ready for combat operations." The response came from Admiral Thompson himself. "Understood. Phoenix Lead. Remember, we only get one shot at surprising them. Make it count." Emma looked at the tactical display. The Dominion ships were advancing in their usual perfect formation. They had no reason to expect anything different from their previous encounters with human forces. They were about to learn how much things had changed. The Dominion fleet emerged from their faster-than-light travel exactly where predicted. Their ships, massive and powerful, moved to establish a battle line. Standard procedure for them, based on the data collected during the Mars attack. Emma gave the order. "All Phoenix units, execute combat pattern Alpha." The converted mining ships, hidden among the asteroids, powered up simultaneously. Their weapons, designed to cut through rock, had been modified to operate at frequencies that would disrupt Dominion shield harmonics. The theory was solid, but this would be the first real test. The first volley caught the Dominion completely by surprise. Beams of concentrated energy struck their ships from multiple directions. Their shields, calibrated to defend against conventional weapons, failed against the mining laser's unusual frequencies. Direct hits confirmed on multiple targets, the tactical officer reported. "Enemy shields are failing." The Dominion ships attempted to regroup, but they had never faced an enemy that attacked from so many directions at once. The mining ships, despite their improvised nature, proved remarkably effective. Their industrial-grade power plants could sustain continuous fire, something the Dominion's military doctrine hadn't accounted for. Emma watched as the battle unfolded. The Dominion's superior technology meant little against weapons they hadn't prepared for. Their ships, designed for direct confrontation, struggled to deal with opponents that attacked from the cover of the asteroid field. "Phoenix Unit 7 reports ammunition depletion," the communications officer announced. "Units 3 and 12 are also running low." "Have them fall back to the resupply points," Emma ordered. This was another advantage they had discovered. The mining ships could replenish their energy weapons using standard power cells, unlike the Dominion's more sophisticated but less flexible systems. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, 7 Dominion warships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships retreated, jumping out of the system in disarray. Humanity had won its first major victory. As the fleet regrouped, Emma received a transmission from Earth Command. The data from the battle would be used to improve the next generation of weapons. More importantly, factories across Earth were already implementing the lessons learned, modifying their production lines to create more effective weapons. Emma looked out at the asteroid field, now cleared of enemy forces. The converted mining ships moved into defensive positions, their industrial-grade engines glowing steadily. They weren't pretty, and they weren't sophisticated, but they had proven something crucial. Humanity could fight back. Back on Earth, the production lines never stopped. Every factory, every shipyard, every industrial facility worked around the clock. The victory at Jupiter had shown that humanity's industrial might could be a weapon in itself. They couldn't match the Dominion's technology yet, but they could overwhelm them with sheer numbers and unexpected applications of industrial equipment. Emma reviewed the production schedules for the next month. The factories in Detroit alone would produce enough battle mechs to equip 3 divisions. The shipyards in orbit were launching new warships daily. And here in the asteroid belt, more mining platforms were being converted into weapons platforms every hour. The Dominion had awakened humanity's industrial potential, and now they would face the consequences. Emma smiled as she watched another mining laser test fire successfully. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven it could fight back, and they were just getting started. Admiral Thomas Reed studied the holographic display showing the remains of the latest battle. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, a mixture of both human and Dominion ships. But this time, the ratio had shifted in humanity's favor. The learning curve had been steep and costly, but they were finally beginning to understand their enemy. The bridge of the EDF Resilient hummed with activity as analysts processed data from the engagement. Each battle, win or lose, provided precious information about Dominion technology and tactics. Reed had made it his mission to understand not just how the Dominion fought, but why they fought that way. "Sir, we've completed the analysis of their shield frequencies," the tactical officer reported. "The pattern is consistent with previous encounters. They haven't adapted to our shield crackers yet." Reed nodded, stroking his chin thoughtfully. This was the Dominion's greatest weakness, their rigid adherence to established protocols. When humanity developed weapons that could overload their shields by matching and amplifying their resonant frequencies, the Dominion responded by simply strengthening their shields rather than changing the frequencies. "They're not stupid," Reed muttered to himself. "They're just inflexible," a trait that humanity was learning to exploit with devastating effect. The latest battle had proven their new tactics worked. Instead of matching the Dominion's organized battle formations, human ships now fought in loose, seemingly chaotic groups. They would scatter when attacked, only to regroup and strike from unexpected angles. The Dominion's precision-coordinated fleet movements became a disadvantage when their targets refused to behave predictably. A warning klaxon interrupted his thoughts. "Multiple Dominion signatures detected," the sensor operator announced. "They're heading for Alpha Centauri colony." Reed straightened. Alpha Centauri was humanity's first extrasolar colony, established just before the war began. Its defense had become a matter of pride as much as strategy. "How many ships?" 30-plus capital ships, sir. Largest fleet we've seen in this sector." "They're learning too," Reed mused. The Dominion was finally adapting, committing larger forces to overwhelm human tactical advantages. "Signal all ships in the sector. Battle Plan Delta." The human fleet gathered quickly, 15 warships, 40 converted mining vessels, and hundreds of smaller craft. On paper, it was no match for the Dominion force, but Reed had long since learned that battles weren't won on paper. As the Dominion fleet approached Alpha Centauri, they moved in their characteristic arrow formation. Their ships, each one a masterpiece of advanced technology, maintained perfect spacing. Reed waited until they were fully committed to their approach before giving the order. "Execute Delta maneuver." The human fleet exploded into apparent chaos. Ships broke formation, scattering in all directions. To the Dominion's tactical computers, it must have looked like a rout before the battle even began. That was exactly what Reed was counting on. The Dominion fleet split up, breaking their perfect formation to pursue what they saw as easy prey. That was their first mistake. Their second was not questioning why the human ships were all fleeing toward the system's asteroid belt. "All ships, initiate shield crackers on my mark," Reed ordered. The technology, reverse-engineered from captured Dominion shield generators, had been distributed throughout the fleet. Each ship now carried devices that could transmit energy at exactly the right frequency to overload Dominion shields. The trap was sprung. As the Dominion ships followed the scattered human fleet into the asteroid belt, hundreds of shield crackers activated simultaneously. The energy pulses, reflected and amplified by carefully positioned asteroids, created a web of destructive resonance. Dominion shields began failing across their entire fleet. Their ships, suddenly vulnerable, found themselves surrounded by human vessels that were no longer fleeing but turning to attack. The converted mining ships, their industrial-grade lasers optimized for shield-stripped targets, opened fire. The battle that followed was unlike anything seen before in the war. Human ships darted between asteroids, using the terrain in ways the Dominion's rigid tactical doctrine couldn't counter. When one human ship was threatened, others would immediately move to support it, displaying a level of initiative and coordination that didn't rely on central command. Reed watched as the tactical display showed more and more Dominion ships going dark. Their technology was superior, their ships more powerful, but they couldn't adapt fast enough to humanity's unconventional tactics. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're picking up Dominion transmissions. They're trying to establish a new command hierarchy. Their fleet commander's ship was among the first we destroyed." This was another advantage Reed had discovered. The Dominion's strict chain of command became a weakness when key links were broken. Human forces, trained to operate independently when necessary, could continue fighting effectively even when cut off from higher command. The battle lasted another 3 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt after the initial trap was sprung. When it was over, 23 Dominion ships had been destroyed or captured. The rest retreated, leaving Alpha Centauri secure. As Reed surveyed the aftermath, he received a priority transmission from Earth Command. The data from this battle would be invaluable. Not just the technical details of how their weapons performed, but the proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their ability to adapt and innovate. The war had entered a new phase. The Dominion's initial technological advantage was being eroded by humanity's rapid learning and adaptation. Every battle, whether won or lost, taught them something new. And unlike their enemies, humans were eager to learn and quick to change their tactics. Reed looked at the colony they had successfully defended. Alpha Centauri represented humanity's first step beyond their solar system. Now it represented something else, proof that humans could not only fight the Dominion but beat them at their own game. "Send word to all ships," Reed ordered. "The defense of Alpha Centauri was successful, but our work isn't done. The Dominion will adapt eventually. We need to be ready when they do." The crews acknowledged the order, already beginning to analyze the battle data and prepare for the next engagement. That was the human factor that the Dominion had never counted on, the relentless drive to learn, adapt, and overcome. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven they could do more than just survive. They could win. Commander David Wells crouched behind a fallen pillar in the Dominion Command Center, his stealth suit's camouflage system working overtime to keep him hidden. Around him, his strike team moved silently through the shadows, placing data taps on every computer terminal they could find. This mission, deep behind enemy lines, was the riskiest operation humanity had attempted yet. The Dominion space station hung in orbit around one of their core worlds, its massive form dwarfing even their largest warships. Intelligence suggested this was one of their primary command and control nodes, coordinating fleet movements across an entire sector of space. If they could crack its systems, they'd have a window into the enemy's entire military network. "Alpha Team in position," whispered Jones through the secure comm. "Data taps are live." "Beta Team ready," Miller added. Security systems successfully looped. Wells checked his tactical display. Everything was going according to plan, almost too well. In his experience, that usually meant trouble was coming. "Begin the download. Keep it slow and steady. We don't want to trigger any power fluctuations." The operation had taken months to plan. Human ships, using captured Dominion technology and modified stealth systems, had carried them to the target. Their infiltration suits, reverse-engineered from recovered Dominion armor, let them move through the station undetected. Even their data taps were built using Dominion components, making them virtually invisible to security scans. A soft beep from his wrist computer indicated the download was 20% complete. Wells forced himself to breathe slowly, counting the seconds. The intel they were gathering could change the course of the war, but only if they got out alive to deliver it. The first sign of trouble came 50 minutes into the operation. "Commander," Jones whispered urgently, "I'm picking up increased activity in the security networks." "They're running a Level 2 diagnostic." Wells cursed silently. Level 2 meant they were actively looking for intruders. "How much longer for the download?" 10 minutes minimum." "Sir." "All teams, activate secondary scrambling protocols," Wells ordered. "If they find one of us, they find all of us. Stay sharp." The minutes crept by with excruciating slowness. Wells could hear Dominion security teams moving through nearby corridors, their heavy footsteps echoing off the metal floors. The station's internal sensors swept the area repeatedly, searching for any anomaly that might reveal the human infiltrators. The download reached 90%, just as the first alarm sounded. "They've detected the data transfer," Miller reported, his voice tight with tension. "Security protocols are activating." "Hold position," Wells commanded. "Let the download finish." They hadn't come this far to fail now. The last few seconds of the download felt like hours. Around them, the station came alive with activity. Security barriers slammed into place, and armed patrols began sweeping every section. The moment the download completed, Wells gave the order they'd all been waiting for. "Ghost Protocol. Everyone out. Now." The strike team moved with practiced precision. Their exit route, carefully planned and memorized, would take them through maintenance shafts and emergency corridors. As they ran, Wells reviewed the preliminary data they'd stolen. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Dominion's entire military operated on a centralized command structure. Every ship, every station, every ground force received their orders from a handful of central command nodes. It was efficient and allowed for perfect coordination, but it was also their greatest weakness. The team reached their hidden shuttle just as the station's main weapons came online. Wells waited until everyone was aboard before triggering the explosive charges they'd planted during their infiltration. The resulting chaos covered their escape, the small shuttle slipping away while the station's crew dealt with multiple simultaneous emergencies. 3 days later, Wells stood before the Combined Earth Defense Force Command, presenting their findings. The room was packed with military leaders and civilian officials, all eager to hear what the raid had revealed. "The Dominion's strength is also their fatal flaw," Wells explained, pointing to the holographic display. "Their entire military depends on these command nodes. Disrupt them, and their forces lose the ability to coordinate effectively." The implications were staggering. For 2 years, humanity had been fighting defensive battles, struggling to hold their territory against superior forces. Now they had a chance to strike back at the heart of the enemy's military machine. Earth Command wasted no time. Within hours, Operation Thunderstrike was approved, a massive coordinated assault on multiple Dominion command nodes. The human war machine, built up over 2 years of constant production, would finally be unleashed at full strength. Wells watched from the bridge of his new command, the EDF Shadow Strike, as the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for battle. Thousands of ships, from massive warships to converted mining vessels, gathered at strategic points throughout human space. The Dominion's rigid command structure had never faced an attack on this scale. The offensive began simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Human forces, operating with minimal central coordination, struck at Dominion installations with unprecedented fury. Their tactics, refined through 2 years of bitter experience, proved devastating against an enemy that couldn't adapt quickly enough. Wells led one of the primary strike forces, targeting a major Dominion command node. His fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into the middle of the enemy formation, their weapons already firing. The Dominion ships, caught off guard by such an aggressive maneuver, struggled to respond. "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega," Wells ordered. "Strike teams, prepare for boarding operations." The battle that followed was chaos by design. Human ships attacked from multiple directions, their formations constantly shifting. Converted mining vessels used their industrial-grade lasers to punch holes in Dominion defenses, while specially equipped boarding craft slipped through the gaps. The Dominion's response was predictably rigid. Their ships maintained perfect formation, even as it made them easier targets. Their commanders waited for orders from higher up the chain of command, orders that were increasingly delayed or confused as human forces damaged more command nodes. Wells monitored the broader strategic situation as his fleet engaged the enemy. Across Dominion space, the same scene was playing out. Human forces struck hard and fast, targeting command and control systems. Without clear orders, Dominion fleet commanders fell back on standard protocols. Protocols that human forces had spent 2 years learning to counter. As the battle reached its peak, Wells received confirmation that his strike teams had successfully breached the command node's defenses. Similar reports came in from other sectors. The Dominion's carefully constructed command network was being torn apart, piece by piece. "Send word to all ships," Wells ordered. "Push forward. Don't give them time to regroup." The human war machine, forged in the fire of defensive battles, was now revealing its full offensive potential. The Dominion had created their perfect enemy, an adaptable, innovative force that could operate effectively without rigid central control. The tide of war had finally turned. Major Maria Torres stood at the viewport of the EDF Vengeance, watching as the combined human fleet approached the Dominion capital world. The planet below was beautiful, its purple-tinged clouds swirling over vast continents covered in gleaming cities. After 3 years of war, humanity had finally reached the heart of their enemy's empire. The fleet was massive, over 5,000 ships of various sizes and types. Some were purpose-built warships, bristling with weapons. Others were converted civilian vessels, their industrial equipment turned to military purposes. All of them bore the scars of previous battles, proud badges of survival and determination. Multiple Dominion signatures detected, the sensor operator reported. "They're moving to protect the capital." Torres nodded, unsurprised. This would be the largest battle of the war. The Dominion had gathered every ship they could spare to defend their homeworld. Their fleet was still impressive, even after the devastating losses they'd suffered in recent months. "All ships, battle stations," Torres ordered. "Execute final approach as planned." The human fleet split into its component battle groups, each one operating independently but coordinating through the tactical network. This was how humanity had learned to fight, not as a single rigid force, but as hundreds of small adaptable units working toward a common goal. The first shots were fired at extreme range, both sides probing each other's defenses. The Dominion fleet maintained their traditional formation, a wall of capital ships protected by screens of smaller vessels. 3 years ago, such a sight would have terrified any human commander. Now Torres saw only the weaknesses in their positioning. "Launch the first wave," she commanded. Hundreds of smaller craft shot forward from the human fleet. They were a mix of fighters, bombers, and specially modified mining ships. Their apparent chaos masked a carefully planned assault pattern. The Dominion responded predictably, shifting their formation to counter the apparent threat. That's when Torres sprung the trap. Second wave. Execute jump now. 1,000 ships suddenly appeared behind the Dominion fleet, having used short-range jumps to bypass their lines completely. The enemy formation, optimized for a frontal engagement, now found itself caught between two forces. The battle exploded into furious action. Space itself seemed to light up with weapon fire. Human ships darted and weaved through the Dominion formation, their tactics refined by years of brutal experience. The Dominion fought back with their superior technology, but they couldn't match the flexibility and initiative of the human forces. Torres kept one eye on the tactical display as she directed her battle group. The human fleet was taking losses, but they were inflicting far greater damage on the enemy. More importantly, they were disrupting the Dominion's ability to coordinate their defense. "Major," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. The Dominion High Council is requesting terms." The bridge fell silent. After 3 years of constant warfare, the concept of victory seemed almost foreign. Torres opened a channel to Fleet Command, relaying the message. The response came quickly. "Continue the attack. Push toward the surface. We'll discuss terms once we have orbital control." Torres understood the logic. The Dominion had to know that defeat was inevitable now. This was about making sure they understood the completeness of that defeat. The space battle continued for another 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. One by one, the Dominion ships were destroyed or forced to surrender. Their formation, once perfect, broke apart into isolated groups that were quickly overwhelmed. As the last enemy ships were dealt with, Torres led the ground assault personally. Dropships descended through the atmosphere, carrying human troops and equipment to the surface. The Dominion's ground defenses were formidable, but they lacked the coordination that had made them so effective at the start of the war. Standing in the Grand Hall of the Dominion High Council 12 hours later, Torres felt a strange mix of emotions. The room was filled with both human and Dominion leaders. The terms of surrender were being discussed, but her attention was drawn to the massive window overlooking the capital city. Smoke rose from several districts where fighting had been heaviest, but most of the city was intact. That had been a deliberate choice. Humanity could have bombarded the planet from orbit, reduced its cities to rubble. Instead, they had fought their way down with precision and restraint. The Dominion leaders seemed confused by this approach. They had expected the same ruthlessness they had shown at Mars 3 years ago. Instead, they found their conquerors discussing reconstruction and cooperation. "Your forces are to be disbanded," the human representative was saying. "Your military technology will be surrendered, but your civilian infrastructure will remain under your control. We're not here to destroy your civilization." Torres listened as the terms were laid out. The Dominion would lose its military power, but retain its autonomy in other matters. Their worlds would not be occupied. Their people would not be enslaved. Instead, they were being offered membership in a new interstellar federation, as equals rather than subjects. Some of the Dominion leaders protested, but others seemed to understand. Humanity had proved itself the superior military power, but they weren't interested in empire. They wanted partners, not slaves. Later, walking through the capital city with a mixed patrol of human and Dominion security forces, Torres reflected on how much both sides had changed. Humanity had been forced to become a military power, to build the most formidable war machine the galaxy had ever seen, but they had managed to retain their humanity in the process. The war was over, but its lessons would not be forgotten. Humanity's industrial might, their ability to adapt and innovate, their capacity for both fury and mercy, these would be remembered. The Dominion had sought to contain what they saw as a potential threat. Instead, they had helped forge humanity into something unprecedented, a power that could win a war without losing its soul. Torres looked up at the stars, now visible as night fell over the capital. Humanity's war machine had served its purpose. Now it would be transformed again, this time into something that could build rather than destroy. That, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.